Дамы и господа.
Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, thank you for your attention to our meeting today, devoted to the digital production, the ways of development of Russian companies. We have today 1.5 hours and 9 presenters, and I ask everyone to be precise and not take too much time from the others. My name is Andrei Sholokhov. I'm the general manager of PTC in Russia and CIS countries, and it happened so that I became on the edge of digitalization when PTC bought the Citybox company, when we were discussing with our clients the words Internet of Things and other things. They caused some smiles, and people could not understand that. Now, digitalization, industrial Internet of Things, Industry 4.0, well, is used by everyone, and as the same as in the chess. People say, well, you have to use a horse to make a step, to make a move. But to use something, we have to understand where we are and what strategy should be used for a certain company. That's why I want you to focus on where you are located at this moment and what you could advise, what is your strategy and what you could advise to your colleagues and other companies. I would like to start from the further side from myself and invite Igor Girkin, the director for IT development in Cisco. Thank you, dear moderator, and thank you. Hello, dear participants. As to the strategy, our experience of working with the clients does not show that it's always good to make a move and win in digitalization. Recently, we had some kind of research, and one of our client company who were involved in digitalization. We also made a poll with 1,800 customers, and only 26% reached the end. They have won in this process. When we started study why it happened this way, only 26% were on the horse in the end. So it turned out that it was due to the correct relation between the information segments of the company and the production side of the company. You have to understand what are the profits. What are the profits from digitalization? This study was a little bit theoretical, but it became practical when we, together with Fano, we came to one of our clients and started telling them about digitalization. After that, the owner of their business stopped us and said, "I tell you myself what I need it for. You have to make this, that, and that for me." And the main task of his was how this the cost of his product is being formed in his company. But in fact, what specific costs, on which stage you have, very often people don't know, even don't realize they have these costs. For instance, our customer would say, "I have robots, but it's very important for me to see how they work, whether they are hand managed or they are automated. Have to pay someone who is fulfilling the technological charts in creating the final product." So the first moment was the understanding by the manager, by the top management of the company, what the profits are from digitalization. and cooperation between the IT technologies department and between the technologists of the company who will let the IT segment to implement these technologies into practice. And the results were not maybe overwhelming, but there are the results. The manager understands who works on which machine, and now he can already punish the person who, instead of automated use of the robots, is managing it with hand. His understanding of the self-cost of the product, and he can, from this point, start planning his margin. And often it happens that, unfortunately, sometimes the most competitive is a product which is brought in from abroad as a second-hand product, and implementation of this product allows this company make a move and become competitive and increase his sales. It may be an indirect effect, but now our customer is opening another shop and extends its production site, opening the second shop, buying additional robots. So it's a kind of a future for the industry. Thank you. Thank you, Igor. A very brief question. You mentioned the operational effectiveness. You have mentioned the integration of various IT systems and robotization. Where is Cisco? In fact, digitalization, today there a lot has been said about twins, digital twins, added reality. This is a smartphone, is a service which is received by a final user. Why do we need this telephone? Why don't we use an old telephone, but we need smartphones? Because the efficiency of our work is increased, or of our being is increased. We do not need a block note. We do not need a calculator or anything else. We use just this smartphone. And this is what the final user can see. But behind this, there are a lot of connecting components where Cisco is. I hope I have answered your question. Thank you, Igor. And now I give the floor to Andrei Burlakov, from our Mitsubishi Electric Rus. Why Mitsubishi is making moves with digital G letter?
First of all, to continue what Igor was talking about, I'd like to say that this market is certainly warming up. I'm not saying that everyone is now ready to implement digital factories, but Mitsubishi Electric is providing digital technologies, for example, your factory, e-factory, and I'll tell you a little bit about it. It's important that implementation of all contemporary mechanisms for smart factory implementation is nowadays needed not just for the sake of turning a regular factory into a digital factory. You need to start with small elements and concepts that can turn small elements and use these small digital elements, building them up in a cellular fashion. That's what the digital manufacturing is based on. E-factory is a company concept that involves actual hardware and machinery. We are talking about e-factory that Mitsubishi Electric invented in the year 2000, but the market wasn't just unready. It's still just warming up. Nevertheless, certainly, this technology is based on the key links mentioned by Igor, linking the automated process control system and digital. In my experience, these two components are always antagonized by each other. IT guys don't want to discuss the problems of automated control systems and vice versa. So in our concept, and by the way, a lot is being said about generating a lot of data by the Internet of Things locally and then send them to the cloud. But we are saying that Mitsubishi Electric is offering data processing technologies at the shop level. And edge computing is a widely known technology. Today we have everything we need for this technology, and most importantly, the data that should stay at the shop level, be it a small shop or a large company, is processed at the same level, and data is transferred, let's say, as 10 or 5% of data is sent to the cloud level or ERP systems, and that prevents systems from overloading. Actually, an important issue emerges. What about the future of a digital factory? Is it about computing or about clouds? So here at this exhibition, we are presenting this solution, and I could talk a lot about it, but I'm not going to focus on that now. So we are focusing on specialized systems that send data from machines or other production elements through mass buses to ERP, filtered and weight data. That's the element of edge computing. And since this edge computing is emerging, we recently announced the opening of a consortium headed by Mitsubishi Electric. It was opened in Japan, and it's called Edge Cross. It used to include 6 companies, some of them IT, and others from the automation sphere. Now there are over 150 companies in this consortium. Why are we doing that? We want to create a shared platform to share information by vendors. We can cooperate for the sake of the end consumer by creating these single platforms at the production level. That's production level, not the cloud level. And this consortium opened in May, and its number of participants is growing. And another solution we are implementing within eFactory, an intellectual smart water treatment plant, an interesting solution to manage the water pressure at a town or even a city because real-time data is read from the control points, and we are not just using a model for various peaks, but the system provides the required pressure at the right time, at the right place, and that provides very high efficiency because up to 15% of energy can be saved. This is confirmed data. And I would like to say, as a conclusion, that digital factory technologies must begin with small implementations. In this slide, you can see a small cell that's called Pokayoke, and in Japanese, it's called it means mistake proof or foolproof. The system prevents mistakes and makes it possible to build, to arrange assembly in a way to improve OEE, or overall equipment efficiency, through A, quality, and B, productivity. And by the way, we are presenting such a system at our stand now, and everyone can see and try how it works. It looks simple, but it's very efficient. You can take any person and take them to this production, and in a day they will be able to assemble almost anything. So I tried to be brief. Actually, I'm very thankful to you for raising this issue, that the IT world has always been divided into IT proper, automation of people's intelligent work, and the second sphere was industrial automation. Moreover, we had a case, and that's for the next speaker to outline, when our multi-year partner, who was working on PLM, connected to your machines with the help of our product, and they weren't immediately able to figure out how to work with that. I now give the floor to Mr. Alexander Yashkin, Deputy CEO, FANUC. How do you link the two worlds?
Good day, dear colleagues and listeners. Well, this topic is a global one. We agreed with the presenters that we are not going to be touching upon the basis, what kind of standards each of us has, etc., but each company has its own standards and tasks in relation of digitalization and of production processes and design processes. Some people are speaking about the through design models, when a 3D model of a certain product has been created by a designer who later managed to develop the program, connecting it with all kind of segments and departments of the company. Another thing is when business sets a task of controlling its production process for finding some bottlenecks in profits, for cost effectiveness, and we are trying to help our clients to solve their tasks. We, as FANUC, and the products we produce, we try to make them most adopted, the best adopted to integration into various IT or digital solutions. In particular, for instance, the collection of data from the equipment, where everyone is speaking about, and many know how to do it well. We are trying to develop the products which are maximally open and compatible to any software. On the other hand, we have to speak about the trends, and that these trends are unrevocable, and we live in the world of digital technologies, in the digital world, and the digitization is around us, and now it's the time when we have to get the modern approaches to the modern production adopted, so that all our production processes could be continuous, maximally effective. And the main goal of ours is to get rid of the handwork. We want the system take decisions for us. This is the next, perhaps, step of digitalization and neuronization of the digital networks. We want to get more profit, more income. So, in particular, I want to say, and maybe in the next Innoprom, We will not just announce the way we are doing it now. We could develop a certain operational system called Felt, which will allow many users, different users, to create their own software. It's like Windows, which allows to bring together various elements used in the production by various controllers, whether Siemens or Fanuc or any other company, and can be integrated on the same platform. Conventional Windows and MS created by MS working in the same operational system. This product has been already developed and it's been tested in Japan and the United States, and I would like to thank specifically Cisco for supporting this project on the global level, and all the computational equipment, servers, all the databases, etc. In the standard solutions we offer, we do it in cooperation with Cisco. The next point I would like to tell you about, I cannot buy, but I cannot but thank Cisco for being involved in this process as well. We have developed around 10,000 industrial robots who are working now over the world on General Motors company enterprises. And it makes us proud to say that in 3 years of industrial operation of these industrial robots, we have not had any single failure or any single accident. There was a zero downtime system developed, minimization of waste time, which is following and forecasting the condition of the industrial robots located in Johannesburg or Detroit or in Uzbekistan, all over the world. These robots are operating, and in one application, in one program, we at any moment can see their condition and forecast the situations. In fact, it allowed us to exclude the failures and the breaking of equipment, thus increasing the productivity and preserve the speed of the or tempo of the products manufacturing. And to make a resume, I want to say that each of us has his or her own tasks, and our task is to help you to optimize these tasks. Any solution which has been implemented depends on the mutual interest, mutual involvement. Please believe me that there are instruments today, but we are not a messiah. We cannot come and tell you what should be done. Together with you, we have to find a reasonable solution, a reasonable application of those means which can be used and which are there. Thank you a lot, Alexander. And I also have a very short question. Please give me the figures, the technologies you have implemented. Have they allowed you to increase the sales of your tools, and what is the percentage of increase? There is no direct connection, but there are some indirect factors we can speak about. In percentage, in the last few years, we have increased by 70% the number of orders for production of robots. Now we are making 7,000 robots a month. Next year we are going to produce 11,000 robots a month. Now the demand is 10.500 robots per month. Well, the figures, well, robot is a commodity and the tools are commodities. It's not like 20 years ago when we were just surprised looking at it. The next question, it's very logical. I would like to transfer to Alexei Karukov. They also produce the tools, and whether it's a driver for you as well. I completely agree with Alexander, and we even have some joint projects. It's quite right. We produce machine tools, and we have several sites where we test these machine tools. And we know the needs of the production very well. Our main principle is to help the rich people to become even richer. In other words, the business is built on from two parts. One part is people, one part is machines. As to digitization of machinery, we use this. We actually do not have unfocused failures. The system follows not only the condition of the machine itself, but also evaluates its dynamics, and we can focus the service of these machine tools, whether it's needed or not needed. Well, the planned service can make machines work well. And the other thing which the system allows us doing is evaluate the personnel, because the success of a business, in my experience, depends on machinery by 20% and 80%. Its dependence, 80% is dependence on people, and the system allows to evaluate the quality of various levels of personnel, and it eliminates the necessity to do a lot of routine work, and the management of the company gets more time. It frees the management of the company. And now we are in the stage of a very active development, the same as Cisco. But much has been already said before. If you have any questions, I'm prepared to answer them. Much has been said, but nevertheless, you have some time left. Can you bring some examples of specific implementations in the Russian companies where your joint work with Cisco has given a chance to get some additional results? Certainly, somehow Vladimir Bakshayev was not mentioned. Everyone was mentioning this project in Salisbury. But one of the most successful managers in Russia, I believe, and one of the implementation is implementation of this system, which allowed, in the first place, to evaluate the production process and find the bottlenecks, which the managers did not even suspect of. Implementation of robots all of a sudden showed that they are working only by 15%, for 15% loaded. It also led to evaluate the work of technologists. When a machine tells you, a certain technologist, when he prepares his program, his machine is stopped 5 times more often than another technologist. So it allowed to use the machine more efficiently. When many people advised to buy additional equipment, it turned out that there is already a reserve with the existing equipment. And it's a very exact information When a certain number of components is planned per month, then the equipment allows to produce exactly the same number. I don't know whether it's a secret or not. He has fined 1/4 of his personnel after implementation of this system, and simultaneously his effectivity grew by 20%. And it happens on other sites as well, because now we are testing the system also on other 3 sites not far from Moscow, and the results are impressive, and it doesn't take a lot of time. That it works not only with the equipment but also with people, because the system controls also the movements of ecologists in our life. You can see how their faces change. By the way, about changing faces, now I would like to give the floor to the representative of the company, which, well, as a star, came to our life. Cifra, Pavel Rostopshin. You see, Pavel, we have Cisco here, Mitsubishi, NITEP, and Fanuc. All of them are busy with digitalization and have their results. And where are you? What is your business model and what you plan to do in the future? It's a quite complicated question or multifaceted question. We are a Russian vendor of digital production, which
we were created about a year ago, and over that time we were able to create some products and purchase some companies. The digitization context is very complicated. Every vendor is saying something. All analysts promise trillions of financial savings. All the terms are different, and integrators are trying to sell their hardware within this context, and customers have a hard time finding out what's actually happening. So I am answering Andrei's difficult question, although I wanted to talk about simpler things. The money you can get from that and what you begin with. Because the idea behind our creation was that the new industrial revolution is coming, and we are creating a Russian vendor that will be using the knowledge of Russian production process engineers and the talents of Russian mathematicians to create a universal software for digital manufacturing and for each industry individually and for all industries in general. It sounds very broad, but we looked at 100 companies in Russia and abroad that we could invest in. Our strategy is investing in companies and build the largest vendor based on that. At the first stage, we are investing $100 million into that. We have already invested in dispatcher and foreman companies for connecting and monitoring machines, and now I can confidently say that we are leaders in the market. About 80% of all connected machines in Russia are our customers. I promised to talk about money and numbers. There are 800,000 machines in Russia. 400,000 of them are CNC, and there are 3,500 metal cutting machines in Europe. If a machine hour costs 2,000 rubles, and if you work in 2 shifts and you increase efficiency, and when you connect and machine connectivity and transparency improvement improves labor productivity by at least 15%, which is confirmed by the results our clients received. The impact for the Russian economy is going to be 576 billion rubles. And our business grew by 3 times over a year by the revenue and the number of connected clients. Most importantly, it's very easy, because the things that used to take years to implement, like automation initiatives, but now 7 plants 500 machines in 7 plants in various parts of Russia were connected in less than half a year. So 3 months even though we had to actually lay the communication lines in some places. The shop itself does not provide a real top-bottom transparency, and variability of what CNC operators can do is very great. They can spend 2 hours for lunch instead of 1 and then turn the spindle on at a highest speed. They can come to work on Saturday to complete the work they could have done on Friday, and then they will get an additional pay for working over the weekend. So currently, until now, no one has known about that. And since we have started working on that, we looked not only at Russian but also at international companies to understand the market better. We thought, okay, that's happening in Russia, but in Western Europe, OEE, overall equipment efficiency and integrated measurement demonstrating production efficiency, it's 80 in Germany, but in Russia it's 30. So of course we have a huge potential of efficiency improvement, but they have nothing else to do in Germany. But as we communicated with our current Western competitors who are making similar software, and they also told me stories, for example, in Eastern Europe, the tool consumption was very high. The plants used to spend so much money on tools, and they didn't understand why when they installed the monitoring system and turned out, and the plant operated in 3 shifts, but it turned out that the workers did all the work in 2 shifts, and no one came to work at night, but they had to operate at very high speed. Besides and so the tools wear and tear was very high, and the salary of the 3rd shift was also wasted. Of course, that's a dramatic case, and that's not 10% of efficiency that 576 billion rubles promise for the Russian economy. But most importantly, I've talked about money a little bit, but most importantly is that it's all very simple. If you have a shop of 30, 20 or 50 machines, you can connect them tomorrow and understand how to get more money from this process for you as a manufacturer. We're actually doing much more, but sometimes it's better to repeat the same idea 3 times than talk too much. Machine connectivity is just the beginning of the industrial internet and smart manufacturing, because after that you work on production optimization with both artificial intelligence and physical and mathematical modeling. Excuse me, Pavel, I will interrupt you for a moment. I will give the floor back to you, but Oleg Bocharov, Deputy Minister of Industry and Trade, has to leave quickly to move to the parallel section. He would like to speak now, and then I will give the floor back to you and even ask a question about the artificial intelligence. May I ask a question to Oleg after his talks? Okay, thank you. I'm ready. I'm listening. For the question now? Of course, no. I'll ask after you speak. No, let's do it. I want to warm up now. Ask your question. What I was just talking about, we have now created a program together with the Ministry of Industry and Trade, a program of subsidized financing at 1% interest rate for digitization projects. But the customers' interest is huge, about 800 million rubles worth of orders, because we cannot, and they cannot be implemented because the companies don't have the money now. But we could get this financial benefit now if they had the money or the budget. Subsidized loans is one thing, but there are also subsidies like those used for engineering software. can we use it to? Can we use subsidies for these? Products. So I'm sorry if it's a very basic question. No one is an expert in regulation because there is no regulation. We worked with the digital department over these 2 days that Mr. Manturov created in the ministry, and I'm now in charge of this department. If I cannot deal with that, then someone else will be in charge. But it's not important. All deputy ministers work as one team. But that's not the point. The principles established by the digital economy are driving us to build a program. And the most important thing, we were able to communicate to Mr. Kozak yesterday. The budget wants to coordinate additional funding in 30 national projects, and we are seeing how healthcare, transportation, and energy projects are creating various requirements. And I would like to ask them, what hardware are you using for that, and how are you going to control this hardware? Unfortunately, the 4 vice prime ministers, Mr. Borisov, Mr. Kozak, and Mr. Akimov, they are already coming to that. They are approaching this solution that each of these programs must have a share in this industry. Otherwise, we will not know what to do. We wrote this program with new tools. Ms. Vladimir Dozhdev is acting director of Digital Technologies Department. So we are not going into the economy. We are all hardware guys, very specific. He is in charge of analyzing how programs comply with demos and how demos can be integrated in the existing products. Of course, we are going to create a digital standard for companies. Of course, this digital standard will be associated with all state support measures for companies. Of course, those who implement these products, for the first few years, we are not going to monitor strictly what kind of products. Maybe they are already implemented. Undoubtedly, our task is not causing the existing production to incur additional costs. We want to support what has been created over that time. Of course, we submitted an application for 2 additional measures of state funding. I will not discuss them yet because it is just the first iteration of discussion. The Ministry of Finance has only reviewed the first version of our technical and economical rationale. We will gather you all in Moscow. I will ask someone to plan this meeting probably in mid-August. I'm sorry if someone was going on vacation, but we will need to work a little bit because I believe that the market, especially at the initial stages, can be really well motivated so that companies are striving to digitization, even though I don't like the word, and creating certain elements, making it possible for them to receive a better state support. It's a comprehensive support, because we are going to say that we should be using all state support measures because to be expertly estimated like that, because without hardware none of them can exist, none of the national projects. And now the government is planning to spend up to 8 trillion rubles in the national projects, and we want all of that to create a breakthrough in the industrial manufacturing in the country, and we will be counting on internal investment.
Our traditional types of support in case of export implementation, they are subsidies which are nevertheless already received by larger holdings, and what we need to do very quickly. Thank you, Pavel, for this question, because I want to see these 800 million in your hardware, because as soon as we say that there will be some support to the companies, there will be an application for some halvanization shop, and it will be necessarily be a digital shop. So let us don't interrupt me, please. I would not like to do some narrow expertise in the authorities, but this is the field which is open and competitive. I have to say that digitalization is not profitable for the companies in the way you offer it to them, because these companies invest a lot into relations in order to promote their products. Certainly, relations are are better than anything else, but nevertheless, you need to think of a final user for them, to feel the effect on them, because it seems I do not want to bind it on my opinion or whatever. I don't want them to destroy the instrument tools in the companies they work in. Because digitalization in this Tatar and Mongol country, if their companies where they are employed will be digital, they will be destroying these digital instruments. And when they feel the profit that it will be profitable for them to work during the night shift, then they will accept it and work with it. In the competition, please, if you do it in a different way, you will participate in the competition, but you won't win it. I apologize, I have to go to another session, and then I will ask you if there are any questions or requirements. Please let us follow. In spite of all those toys and plays, there is some ideology in them. We are not making films for the sake of films. All the information which is demonstrated at our stand will be will be going through me. We have the two main problems. The first one, a Russian person doesn't know how to answer the word, the question why. Yes, we are used to earning on course, and we are doing it for 100 years, and it's difficult to change the mentality, and without this, no digitalization is possible. So in order to start this process, we need not only to answer the question where. We understand why we need digitalization. Certainly you have products, they are effective and interesting, but we need a system to get them implemented, and to do it, we need to explain people why they need it. Especially on the first stage, it will be very, very difficult. Russian people will know how to earn on this way, and as a result, we will get another effect: the growth of the self-cost of products, and not being able to enter the competitive markets. Thank you. I would like to add that it's not only Russian people who don't know how to answer why do we need digitalization, but nevertheless I liked Paul's phrase that Russian mathematicians are very talented. As a Russian mathematician, I liked that very much. Nevertheless, a very quick question. Do you remember, Pavel, when we stopped developing our own computers, and we hope then that our programmers will find the software which will place the Soviet Union on the first positions of the world. Are you not afraid that a Russian vendor in digitalization will end in the same way? So you mean that we need to produce hardware? Well, your business model is your solution, your decision. Not all machine tools can be connected directly, so we produce certain boxes. Yeah. We do not say that we will not do something never. Ever. In the beginning, we thought that, for instance, our soft is a priori is worse. It's not patriotic, but nevertheless, that it's worse than any other soft over the world. For instance, Simca. We don't touch PTC, for instance. It showed, the experience showed that our product is better, not worse, but even better than theirs. And we heard it from the European customers. And we look at what our customers expect, and we understand that we need to build our company in the long-term perspective, and that we cannot monitor people because they will write to the trade union and will be upset. In Germany, for instance, it's a big topic, not like here. But nevertheless, if we are speaking about effects, money for hardware and digitalization, well, I have to stop, but the PM Reductor has not bought machine tools for 4.7 million euro because they had increased the labor productivity, and part of this money it was able to spend for the bonuses to people, and it's good for the employees, for the people, and maybe not for those. It's not good for those who can sell their machine tools. So I'm convinced that we are doing good thing. Well, as to the workers, I don't know. It's important for me. Well, it's a rather speculative topic, artificial intellect, what people are going to do, they will be followed, etc., etc. When you are growing the productivity, when you don't work by foreign-made machine tools, you have a better situation at home. I would like to give the floor to Danila Tsalihan, the chief specialist on innovations from PowerTem. You are not for the first time taking part in Innoprom, and you were quite actively participating in Innoprom 2 years ago with a specific project where we can pronounce this artificial intellect. Please do not use the word sniper. I beg you. Why? You play in this game, digitalization, and what this digitalization gives you. I cannot tell you that the Magnitogorsk metallurgical combinate is playing this game, digitalization. It's not a very new thing for us. It's a planned work, and it's been done for quite a number of years. From the third revolution, as any other metallurgical companies, we grow gradually into the fourth revolution. But to answer this question for myself, where we go, every time hearing about hardware, equipment, digitalization, I cannot hear about people, but the bottleneck is in people. It was quite right mentioned by our colleague from the ministry. Have anyone read the book Goal of Ilyaha Holder? You can hope for a great number of machine tools and do not get any effect. But we have some just workers, employees. They take an agglomerate, they hold it in the hand, and they understand whether it's good or bad, this raw material. If he can feel this with his hands, do we need to replace him with a robot, for instance? These specialists who carry these competencies, there are many, and who we are growing. Another examples from another field, from environment. We have the coal batteries, which produce some gas in the end. They also have some emissions of CO2 emissions. We have installed the meters on the collectors, and there were some 15 people to think of what these meters can show us. Well, we see, through these meters, the burning process is violated. There are perhaps some gaps in the walls of this block. Okay, there are mathematicians in this group, and they think, let us see whether we can compare the loading process of these batteries with the CO2 emissions and find out which batteries are loaded 2 hours before this peak. Yes, and we found out that it's very well possible to see which batteries are having these CO2 emission peaks. We have spent a lot of working hours for this. And now a question, who had to set such a goal? 15 people every time, or there should be a certain person, a specialist, and what this specialist should be like? It may be a chemist, an energy man, or not automation specialist, or an environmentalist. And the next question is, who are the graduates of our universities? Can they set a systemic task for digitalization? Judging by what I heard here yesterday and today, he must be a good a mathematician. Yes, he has to be a programmer. He needs to be aware of technologies, and he has to be a well-developed person. The one who can say, we need 15 meters, we need a controller and the top level of system on neuro networks. Without this type of specialists, we can make any attempts to create the most complicated system, beginning from the collection of data to the analysis of this data. Then the question is, who is going to manage this data in the end? Artificial intellect, or who? Where are these specialists? Now there are very, very few left on the production, in the production companies. And in fact, they are not even trained nowadays in the universities. Have you ever read the math textbooks at school? People, you have your kids. What do they study at schools? It's a big question. Who is going to do it? If we take a German company and see a happy engineer at a picture looking at some digital graph, please let me see 20 people like that in our companies. Who are they? Electricians or repair people? They are all the time in their shop, in the production shop. They do not have time to look at the monitor. 10 years ago, there appeared Siemens Technomatics, a wonderful model of digital production. All the production is being modeled from the beginning to the end. It was my hobby, and I studied it. And there were about 8 people only only in Russia, the whole Russia, who knew this product. It's a wonderful product, but only 8 people for the whole of Russia. Okay, now we start implementing any product from Siemens, MindSphere, or SCCOR. Wonderful, but there are no specialists to work with these products. We do not have data scientists at our industrial companies. They are only beginning to introduce this. This is an engineer in common sense, just an engineer in common sense, because in the Soviet Union, an engineer had such a level of education which allowed them to solve any problem and do it by hand. Well, I remember my father with his friend, they made a TV set. And now we went to this digitalization field. We have created a lot of complex systems based on mathematics, analysis, etc., etc. And we forgot that there are no people to work with these systems. So my question to you is how to grow these people? Do we need to change the educational system? Do we need to implement some master course or do some training at the companies? Because there are operators, they are talented people, they have schedule. And we come and say, well, it's the last century. We will put an artificial internet here and IoT here, and you will have 4 monitors more. Well, this is a real picture. He looks at it and opens his box and looks at a text in Word, written in Word instruction. Well, and says, this button I can, this thing I can stop this. Well, we need to grow the personnel. We need to grow the staff. Thank you, Danila. I would like to make one big remark.
This is not from the Russian experience, but our company has many large customers. You can see them on our stand, but usually they solve very small tasks, some bottlenecks that they eliminate to achieve certain results, but you cannot say that these results are groundbreaking. That's option 1. And the second option, quite powerful, is when there is management support, when people understand the manager's business strategy, and when the projects that could be called digitization are aligned with the business strategy. That's when they are really successful. And that's a question about task setters. Should be at the bottom level or at the top level? The people who manage the business and set these tasks. It is maybe very brazen of me, but let's imagine I'm a head of a metallurgical company. I really I love digitization, so what jobs should I create? Question 1, what is digitization? What do you love? I just love it. You cannot love everything. No, it's a cool solution. It's a cool solution. My colleagues, my deputies and department directors are coming and telling me about their projects, and I'm ready to support it. So they are asking me for resources, money usually, but when they are coming and telling me I need people, I come to my director general and say, give me people. What kind of people? And now I don't understand. Maybe I should employ someone for my department, which is not correct because the task concerns the shop floor. Okay, so employees for shops. Let's say deputy shop manager for digitization, or better still for common sense. Can I add a short comment? As the general director, I can say that the first task of every director general is making profit. And all the other tasks are derivative from that. And the person that assembles it all together, whom to employ and so on, that's called CEO or general manager or business owner. But this is a business person, and there are maybe 3% of such people in the world, and you cannot train them because it's a lifestyle, and you have to sacrifice a lot, your personal life and many other things, to organize a business and hire narrow experts for specific subject matters. And that's the businessman or general manager is the one who brings them all together. And I don't think you can train such a person. It's like training in Albert Einstein. How do you do that? So that's a dead end. We are not training Einsteins, and I am not ready to sacrifice my personal life. So I give the floor to Kirill Alifanov, CIO Uralkali, and he is the last speaker in our session. And I hope that he will solve the issues we have raised today. I don't think so. Mikhail Kozak wasn't able to solve it. How can I? Well, you are better than Kozak. You are in Berezniki, he's in Moscow. Yeah, I agree. I actually wanted to share a very interesting comment. It's my second day at the exhibition, and I can see that at every digitization session, a quarter of participants are just sleeping. Interesting things are being discussed while people are sleeping. It's actually very good because it's getting straight into their subconscious. So digitization is not around us, it's inside us now. So the digital twin everyone is talking about, we already have it. Look on Facebook. We are all on Facebook or Google. We are already there. We are online. It's cool on the one hand, but also scary. I want to talk a little bit about what's happening in agricultural technologies from the point of view of irreversible digitization development. It's not part of Uralkali experience. It's my previous life that I've been involved in for 2.5 years, and I've only recently came to the mining industry. So imagine a pig. A pig's life cycle is 120 days from the time it's born until it is turned into meat. Over 120 days, the pig must get 123 kilos of weight. The more often you measure a pig, the more stressed it is, and KPIs are suffering, and everyone is sad, from the actual person dealing with pigs to the CEO. By implementing digitization, we identified an interesting technology that can measure a pig's weight by the distance between its eyes. When the pig comes to the feeding trough, a sensor reads this information, and we know that without weighing. So everyone is happy, from the pig to the CEO. That's the goal of digitization, as I said. Of course, the eventual goal of digitization is providing more profit for everyone, for the worker, the shareholder, the country, and the economy. So what's happening in agriculture, in agricultural business? 2 years ago, it used to be a kind of old-fashioned story with tractors and combiners and so on. But after the sanctions were imposed and government started playing with the industry, a huge transformation began. So now agriculture is one of the most digital businesses, along with the banks that are completely digitized. So agriculture is moving in the same direction. It's almost there. When I came there, I was very surprised by the number of technologies already used, and not just something like we need IoT, but the actual case study, like the one I gave you about the pig, it's been piloted, and it already gave us some financial benefits. So what can we see by this example? Digitization is only happening when there is a specific customer represented by the shareholder or the president who recently said digitization. That's why we have this innovative forum devoted to digitization and hosting 50,000 attendees. It's important that we have a customer for any changes. The customer is a must. For 10 or 15 years, I, as a manager, was looking at how IT guys are droning on about implementing cool stuff and ERPs and calculators and optimization systems, and everyone says, yeah, that's great, but we are busy working, stop distracting us. But now this paradigm is shifting, and now everyone is chasing me and asking me to implement something. We realize that we are falling behind the global trend, so now it's let's do it quickly and for free if possible. In the agriculture, it started 5 years ago, and this process is growing exponentially. So what interesting things do we have here? I've already told you about the pigs. And another important technology, there is a video camera, and it uses pattern recognition and analytics technology. There is a conveyor processing meat of poultry meat, and workers have chips in their heads, and you can see how quickly they are working and how quickly they have to work. And if a piece of meat is falling from the conveyor on the floor, what would the worker usually do? Pick it up and put it back on the conveyor, although they are not supposed to. But if this happens with the chip, the alarm goes off and the manager runs to the conveyor and says that shouldn't be done. Secondly, is safety. It's critical for any manufacturing. It would seem that meat processing is not very dangerous, but people who are wielding knives to process meat, they are often very careless for their own safety. They have special metal gloves, but it's not convenient to work in them. So they take the gloves off and chop their fingers off. They have special shields to prevent them from hurting themselves with a knife, but they remove the shields and put a knife in themselves. So these sensors also send a signal if PPEs are tampered with. So production safety personnel and the manager come to find out what happened. And if you took the special hat with a chip off and put a regular cap, it's also sensed. And this story is about profit on the one hand, and on the other hand about caring for people. Again, the agricultural holding I worked at had 700,000 hectares. It's almost the size of Belgium. And drones. Again, people are saying, let's use drones. Okay, let's do it. We calculated that controlling this area with drones would require us to spend 5 million euro for drones and then spend as much on their maintenance and repair. It doesn't make financial sense. In Europe, agricultural holdings are 10 times smaller. That's why it's okay for them. So what does Roscosmos do? They send low orbit satellites, and they can show us what's happening with the biological mass movements in the fields. Now the farmer doesn't need to go to the field every day. They can just see whether the beetroot, for example, is growing or not, and what is the state of the soil. It shifts the whole paradigm of the industry. Now one farmer can control 30,000 hectares. I think European farmers can't even imagine how it's possible. Besides, we are now developing an analytical system that includes the soil acidity level and historical weather data and harvest data, and they use algorithms to recommend to the farmer that, for example, soybeans are not growing well here, and tomorrow it will be very hot. You should use the following amount of chemicals. Then there is a problem of pests. Pests are eating lots of harvest. Rats moles and mice and so on. And there is a drone flying above the field, and they use infrared imaging to identify this vermin, and it sends signal. And another drone flies in and drops poison in mice's places of inhabitation. That's actually happening. I didn't believe it first myself. Of course, you need to calculate ROI, how many drones you need, but it's actually working. That's digitization. And we now get back to those people who set the tasks and those people who perform them. So when people are coming and saying, let's implement blockchain, we don't work with them. But if people are coming and saying, we have 3 mathematicians and 1 agricultural expert, and we know how to kill mice, but you need to know the word kill mice. Yes, there must be 1 agricultural expert. There must be at least 1 person who knows this specific area and industry. In conclusion, I'd like to say that digitization is irreversible, but it doesn't have to be a shock treatment. We've been doing it for 15 years, and now suddenly it's the buzzword. Because if you put a frog into a hot water, it will jump out. But if you heat the water gradually, then you will get the result you want. And this paradigm of doing business and training personnel must be somehow considered at the government level, and it should be moving forward exponentially. Kirill, thank you very much.
And I would like to emphasize, underline that you have answered the question. Drawing the resume, a pig can be measured by size, and you can make a picture and get the distance between its eyes. It's the same task, is to understand the weight of a pig. It's a physical task. It's not a digital task. It's just that it's a cheaper and less traumatic method. I did not yet tell you how, by coughing of pigs, they select the pigs which are sick. Thank you. Thank everyone. And we don't have one of the speakers. That's why we have finished 10 minutes before the planned time. That's why I believe that you can ask your questions. Do we have a microphone? Fyodor Vasilyev from the Moscow Aviation Institute, as to the education. By my work, I regularly go to similar events related to education in digital area. We permanently discuss what kind of specialists the market needs, what do we need to teach them, etc. But in brief, we identified the problem in education. The market is our customer, they say. Give us a specialist. We have thoughts about something and we have given them something, and they say, well, it's a bad product. Now we are changing to another model when we become the part of the market, and those people who identify what kind of specialists they need, they participate in the education. We open the master course from the 1st of September. Among our participants are the suppliers of metal products. We are inviting corporations there. For the time being, they do not need it. If you, as people representing digital companies, take part in this, you are very welcome, because well, we can take the IT people and we can train them managing people and projects. Thank you. Fyodor Vasilyev, Moscow Aviation Institute. You also wanted to ask a question on the first row, the gentleman. Dmitry Shulgin, Connect journal. There is already one idea which sounded it in your presentation. I will try to reformulate it on similar conferences. I often hear opposing judgments about digitalization. Some people say that one needs to start with the analysis of business processes. First, you have to sort out what kind of business processes you have and make a model for your company, and then only place some IT solutions on top of that. And there are some opposite points of view when people say, well, it's opposite. You are not, you should not destroy our production. We do not need to break our business processes. Let us just paint what we have with a digital color. It's a kind of a discrete approach, step by step. What, in your opinion, what theory is closer to truth, in your opinion? It has been mentioned that there are large corporations, and I had a comparison in mind that in an ocean you have to organize a stream. The corporations they are not business structures. They do not have a task of getting profit. They have a customer, the state, the government, and the government is not business people. In reality, we mentioned Elon Musk. He is a businessman and he learned how to earn money. So the government started cooperating with him. In my opinion, the moving force, driving force is the person who has organized a business. And if this business is organized in the correct way, and if the founder of the company has identified the demands of the market in the correct way, then this company will be the driving force. In business, it's like a river. The river flows where the low place flows to the low place. So the same is in business. And as to the education, I can say that in 1946, they have organized the FISTIA, Physical Technical University. And many people over the world are using this system of FISTIA. And we are trying to invent something new. Well, but what is the best way? From top down or from down to top? In my opinion, it's not the time to address the processes, but we need to address the ground briefly. I will also give the Center from Moscow, Minprom. In the first place, I would like to thank Danila Fyodorovich for his very good presentation. A couple of years ago, we met at a site of some system integrator, and we were speaking about technological audits. And since then, 4 years have gone, and I understand that there is a very specific approach and an absolutely reconsidered opinion. That is what I heard today, and I want to repeat once more that we believe movement towards informatization, digitalization doesn't depend what word we use. It must be both ways, from down upwards and also from top downwards from the managers who are optimizing the costs of the company and trying to get the maximum profit from their production sites. And when Oleg was here, and in this connection, Paul asked a question about state support. And there is another thing. The effect from the implementation of certain technologies will give a colossal result, as we heard, right? And you also mentioned that the companies that hope for state support, if there is such a big effect, who refused from using own means from I cannot enumerate them. Nobody refused, but you know better than me how the mechanical engineering is organized. They have a budget for the next year. The budgets are managed by certain people. The plans are managed by other people. I do not mean that there is such a big chaos, but the costs are the costs, effects are effects. First, you have a line. You can spend 100 rubles for buying machine tools, and other costs will be made out of 1 ruble, for instance. I cannot give you the client names because it's maybe the clients will tell you themselves. Do you have any doubts that the budget of costs and the budget of incomes is planned separately? There are collective agreements, average period plans. Well, the question whether to apply or not apply state money is very important. If the company believes in its own project, it will find own means. That's true. I would like to ask, Michael Antonov, mechanical and repair complex. I would like to tell you that we have implemented the dispatcher system for several dozens of units of equipment. And a brief resume. Dispatcher is a kind of a box which can be connected to any machine tool or to any other piece of equipment. And its main trick is that it can identify independently from an operator whether the machine is working, operating, or not operating. And you can adjust the mode of the machine based on the necessity. Sometimes the machines are operating but not producing things. And in the night, sometimes there are some supervisors walking through the shop, and they see that a machine is operating according to the program. And there is some violation of these modes. I'm from Magnitogorsk. I introduces myself. It's a private company. It's a minus of this dispatcher system. It's some novelty. People did not know before that they can be controlled or watched. The process with time, the number of these things is decreasing, and the data show it. But what was discussed here? Well, we are living in one country, and there is a command to implement the digital technologies. And people really want to do this. And they will reach the point. It's just that human factor is a little bit lacking behind the technological factor. Now everyone can see that the monitoring system is a better thing than not having it, and there is a real effect from it. But just to tell that, well, people think of something not to work, or deputy minister says that we need to take care of people. Everything is interconnected, and with time, things will come to norm, and universities will reach the level of necessity. And to give you a brief resume, I can say that there is already digital revolution. It has come, and we cannot escape it. And how to live in this, we are discussing now. But it seems to me that finally, in the next year when we meet, there will be some other questions to discuss. People will be okay by then, and the focus of your attention will be switched over to some other area. Thank you for your resume. I wanted to say briefly that if you have a direct connection, since we have implemented it into your company, we can place a new version of our software at your company. Dear colleagues, we have achieved the end of our session, and I want to express my gratitude to all the participants.